The world will now be watching as Britain negotiates its exit from the European Union. As the UK heads into uncharted territory, some are wondering what led voters there to take such a momentous step. Correspondent Doug McKelway reports on whether today's decision is part of a bigger trend around the globe.
Britain's exit from the European Union is already igniting a fire that has been smoldering across Europe. Populist and right-leaning forces in France, for example, have been gaining strength and are calling for their own exit.
The French as well must have the opportunity to choose the way to freedom that will give back to France its full and entire sovereignty.
Polls show that a majority of the Dutch want to put an EU exit to a vote.
I'm very jealous, and I'm trying to achieve the same in the Netherlands next year.
Interest in a European Union breakup has spawned a tidal wave of Brexit variations, including Italy, check out, Austria la vista, finish, Slovak out, and departugal. As in the U.S., Europe is rebelling against what millions see as government by the elites. Critics say rather than simplify Europe's regulatory structure in its 23-year existence, the EU government in Brussels has added layers of bureaucracy and regulation.
There is a general sense of malaise that the European Union is not working, and part of the reason why it isn't working is because Europe is over-regulated. Power has been increasingly centralized in Brussels.
Europe's unease also mirrors U.S. worries over uncontrolled immigration, the resultant crime, terror threats, and failure by some populations to assimilate into the broader culture.
People want to see borders. They don't necessarily want people pouring into their country that they don't know who they are and where they come from. They have no idea.
There is also a frustration over economic decline and influence, and resentment that the more productive EU economies like Britain and Germany have had to bail out the weaker ones like Greece. The votes that put the Brexit over the top came from Britain's equivalent of the U.S. Midwestern Rust Belt. How many other nations ride this anti-elite wave will likely depend on whether the British economy does well on its own over the long term.
If that happens, more and more countries will look at the British example and say, we can do that too.
Critics warn that Britain is risking its economy in today's competitive international market without the auspices of the EU. But Britain has a long history of thriving in international trade, having been its leader for the better part of the 18th, 19th, and part of the 20th century. Chris?
More on all of this with the panel. Doug, thanks.